Hello. If you've come back, that's great. If not, hopefully you will see this later. My Facebook Live event was delayed today for various reasons, and I'm not sure exactly what happened. I'm trying a different browser, and the sound seems to be working properly. I wanted to just take a minute. I've had several town hall meetings which I've recorded in the past. You're welcome to watch those. But just wanted to give you an update on a couple of things. A few people have asked who I am, why I'm running, why they should vote for me. Let's start there. My name is Fred Cox. I've lived in Salt Lake County my whole life, been a resident here, lived a couple of years outside, but I've lived in West Valley City for over 30 years. I'm an architect by profession. I've been self-employed for the majority of that time, or at least a large portion of it. And for the last year and a half, I've also been working for an architect that's also a contractor in Sandy. I served in the legislature in 2011, 12, 15, and 16. And most recently, I was heavily involved in the 2019 tax referendum. In fact, I was the original sponsor. We needed 5 people to sign on that document to apply to run a referendum. We got that, and then we were able to get 170,000 people also to sign to put that on the ballot to basically repeal the bill that the legislature passed in December that would modify our tax structure. About 144,000 of those people signed and had that verified. Approximately 40,000 people, their signatures were not verified because the legislature voted to repeal the bill and the governor signed that. I'm glad that the sound is working. I'm not sure if it was my other browser or another setting, but I've done this several times in the past and it's worked. A couple of other things that people have asked. All right, so we know a little bit about you and we know a little bit about maybe what you've done in the past. They know that I served in the legislature. I was heavily involved in fighting moving the prison, not necessarily because putting it out where they're doing is such a bad location. It's fairly close to hospitals and volunteers. But I knew that it would cost hundreds of millions of dollars more than if they would just rebuild it in Draper. And they could still free up a number of acres, probably hundreds of acres in Draper for taxes and to fix it so that the transportation and other things would work. Most people never know that the prison stayed there. We would just save hundreds of millions of dollars. We need to do that on a county basis. Right now, we need to probably save 95 million over what the county council passed last December. And they raised taxes. There's no reason that they should have raised taxes. And 7 of the 9 council members voted for the tax increase. They may have been able to reduce the budget by a significant amount. 2 members of the county council felt like they could. That's something, one of the reasons I'm looking at running is I have a tendency to look at things. For example, the west side of Salt Lake County is running out of water. Recently, the county council voted to approve an Olympia Hills development, approximately 900 acres. Commitments were made that that would have water, but the water district basically said, we won't have enough water for the West Bench. You'll have to get it from Bear River. Well, that's billions of dollars, and there are other options that could save billions of dollars. And I've talked to people that know a lot more about water than I do, and they believe that it is possible to make changes in the evaporation and other things in Utah Lake. Utah Lake loses half of its water through evaporation. We know that Great Salt Lake does because it has no place to go. But there are things we can do in Utah Lake that would dramatically increase the amount of water available in Salt Lake County without hurting anything else. It will take time and it will take money, but it certainly won't take the billions of dollars that is being proposed to pipe water from Bear River. we need people that are willing to create win-win scenarios, that are willing to listen, and I believe that is very important. We have a county mayor that's making decisions, many cases on her own, or certainly with the current council. So, for example, gun rights. The county mayor should not be making any decisions having to do with guns in Utah. One, you've got a Second Amendment, you've got Article 1, Section 6 in the state constitution that leaves a certain amount of control up to the legislature as far as legal use of guns. But our constitution promises that guns, that we have the ability to defend ourselves, ourselves, our family, our state. And that's why we have the rights that we have. And that's not something that the county mayor should be able to make decisions on her own. Later, there was a bill being proposed by the legislature this last session that would have removed any possibility of the county mayor making those decisions for various reasons. And on a 5-4 decision, even though we have a Republican majority, our county council basically backed the mayor. I believe that is a mistake. The Olympia Hills project, I'm an architect. I don't have any problem with property rights. There's lots of things. I proposed a compromise, but rezoning 900 acres all at once with the situation that they created with some other city getting that burden in the future and not even having the opportunity of voting on it was a mistake. Should not have happened. 6-3 decision. The two Republicans, one of them is not running, the other one has got a challenger, and perhaps we'll be able to make better decisions in the future. But that's an ongoing problem that the county made a commitment on. Anyway, one of the reasons that I'm running is if we don't speak up, we see our constitutional rights taken away. It is inappropriate and unconstitutional for the state or the county to tell a business that you're closed. If they didn't do anything wrong, if they're following the rules, that is not appropriate to do. We can tell a business owner that they need to be safe, their employees safe, and the customers need to be safe. And we can give them guidelines, but we can't just shut them down. They may shut down because they can't figure out how to do it, but that's their decision, not the government. Hang on just a second. I just need some water. But I just wanted to answer a couple of other questions that people have asked me as far as what could be done differently. Again, we really need to cut $100 million out of our county budget. And that can be done across the board, and it can be, why is the county taking over recreational buildings that cities paid for, that cities have been managing? Why should the county be doing that? And that's a decision that we need to look at. Why should the county budget be approximately $1.5 billion when we have cities throughout the county, and in most cases everywhere, with very few exceptions? We do have some metro townships. That's another issue. But there's no reason for the county to have that size of a budget. Doesn't mean that we just throw everything on the various cities, but there are many things that the county is doing that the county does not have to do, that a city could do if they wanted to do, and we can work with the cities and find out what will work better for the taxpayers and what's more efficient. In some cases, the county is doing some really important things. For example, we have a county jail, we have a district attorney's office. There are things that the county can do and perhaps should do that the cities cannot. but that needs to be looked at. We've been giving away money to various organizations on a regular basis. In some cases, giving money to a particular group could save taxpayers a significant amount of money long term. That can be looked at one item at a time, but right now the county council has been unwilling to cut any of that. They're being generous with taxpayer money without really looking to have any accountabilities. So budget is certainly an item that we need to look at. Water is huge. Salt Lake County, in the future, if we keep on growing at the rate that we are, will have some water issues. The water districts have made commitments to various developments of various cities, but we are growing faster than that in some areas. In some areas of the county, they don't have any kind of a budget, if you will, for water in those areas. So we're not going to be able to develop those unless we get more water. And there are things that we can do to work with the state to perhaps alleviate some of the problems that we have as far as infrastructure, as far as transportation, water, sewer, etc. Obviously, crime is important. As we keep on getting more and more people, we have over 1 million people in Salt Lake County, and that can work well or it couldn't. There's still significant areas of the county that there is no construction as far as houses or businesses that are currently controlled by groups such as Kennecott, Rio Tinto, etc. We need to plan accordingly, but one of the things that has ticked a lot of communities off, and it was obviously obvious with the Olympia Hills project, is that we need to allow cities to make decisions. We get ticked off at the state when they tell us what to do. We get ticked off at the federal level when they tell us what to do. The state telling West Valley and Salt Lake City what they're going to do with the inland port area, etc. There has to be communication. There has to be win-win scenarios created, and we shouldn't be taking advantage of each other. Those are some important things that I've been asked about, and I think it's very important. If you've got any specific questions, you're welcome to ask them now. I may be able to receive some emails, but certainly can see comments. And a number of you were here at 10 o'clock, which was when I planned on having this meeting. And for some reason, either due to some changes in a browser or something else, it literally took me quite a while to figure out another option. Somebody suggested try a different browser, and this one is obviously working. There's some other important things that you should know. One of the reasons that I fought that tax bill that was going to restructure our taxes was basically 5 items. If you raise the tax on food by a significant enough, it reduces the amount of food that people take home. The legislature was trying to fix that to a certain extent, and you get rebates and other things, but why should somebody that is making it on their own have to have support from the government to be able to buy food if they currently don't? That was a wrong decision. Just it's wrong. I have fought raising the tax on food since at least 2011, over and over again, when I was in the legislature, when I was not in the legislature, and obviously this time I wasn't in the legislature, I still fought. Raising the tax on fuel. There are roads, there are things that need to be done, but the legislature was trying to do that for another reason. They wanted to free up approximately $600 million that's coming from sales tax going to roads, thinking that that was a right thing to do. That violates our state constitution. They should not be doing that. They actually overrode the governor, probably I think in 2011, over this very issue. If you read our state constitution, it basically says that the tax on fuel that you pay at the pump needs to go to transportation. It also refers to transportation-related taxes. and I believe that refers to transportation-related sales tax. And currently, approximately 17%, or at least that's the last number I saw, of our sales tax is transportation-related, and that's where the $600 million is coming from, and that is currently going to transportation. The legislature wanted to use that for something else. They also wanted to use education funds someplace else. And they've been able to balance that to a certain extent with higher education, because higher education can also be funded through income tax along with K through 12. They wanted to move $680 million out of the education fund and use it for somewhere else. If you read the fiscal note for 2019 SB 2001, it basically they were doing that. They were moving money around to a large extent like shell games so that they could do that theoretically legally. But that was another part of that bill. Restructuring the funding of transportation was as well. And the other thing that this did was raise taxes on services, many of which currently do not pay any kind of sales or service taxes. We had a surplus at the time. We're not going to have a surplus now with the virus, but we had a surplus at the time. There was no reason for the legislature to be raising any new taxes at all. They couldn't figure out how to keep those various balances, or budgets balanced. And so they were making it easy on them, but they were making it hard on the taxpayers. And that was the bulk of the reason I fought that. I contacted the most liberal friends I had and the most conservative friends I had, and they did not like the bill either. And so together, working together as volunteers, we were able to get thousands of people throughout the state and very number of businesses, including Harmon's and others, that stepped up and said, this is going to cost our clients, our customers, millions and millions of dollars, and we worked hard. We need to do that on the county. Salt Lake County is one of the most divisive areas of the state as far as politically. We have very many liberals and conservatives, much more so than other areas. We've got a council that's basically split. We have one or two council members that seem to go one way or the other, and so there are a lot of 5-4 decisions. We need to look at win-win scenarios. There should be more 9-0 decisions on some of these issues. And some of these issues, maybe, for example, Olympia Hills, if they had waited another couple of weeks on that, they could have made a decision and they could have had a 9-0 decision. And you would have had people in Harriman and South Jordan feeling a whole lot better with the decisions made than what they are. We need that in the county. One of the tools that I used when I was in the legislature in 2011, 12, 15, and 16 was town hall meetings. I would send out notices to anybody, not just the Republicans, not just the Democrats, anybody that was an active voter. I would do everything I could to invite as many of those to those various town hall meetings. Some of them were not large, but I would spend the majority of the time sitting in the front listening. And I would get ideas. And for the last couple of months, I have received a number of ideas of problems in the county that we need to work on, and in some cases, solutions. That's where we need to look. We need people in there. I do not remember having a single invite in the last 12 years from my county council person for a public town hall meeting that I could go to a library or someplace and talk and listen, but also share what I think needs to be done. I consistently did that in the legislature, and I believe that was one of the best things that I did. I also read through the things I was going to vote on. Right now, we have part-time county council people with full-time staff. There's a full-time staff member that reads through things, gives them updates. They know a lot of the details that the member of the council doesn't know. We have attorneys that give them advice. We have basically a CFO. We have other people that provide information to the county council. And that's not necessarily bad, but we need to have people be more willing to look at things. I've got a reputation of seeing things that other people miss when it comes to state laws, when it comes to ordinances. Recently, I'm questioning something that's happening statewide on adopting a particular uh, appendix in a fire code that has not been adopted properly based on state law. That's statewide. There are a number of cities that adopted Appendix D in the fire code. They didn't follow our state law. They have many, many attorneys that are giving them that kind of advice, but they missed reading the whole chapter. They missed looking at things in context. We need people that will look through and try to avoid the unintended consequences of some of the decisions are made. We make things too complicated. State procurement laws that affect a number of governmental agencies are thousands and thousands and thousands of lines. The last bill I remember saying was over 7,000 lines. They're so complicated that it's very hard for somebody to keep everything legal and not get in trouble. Our laws should be simple. We should create things that keep us from hurting each other, and certainly, but not make them any more complicated as possible, and not set people up to go to jail. We need to protect our rights as a people, as property owners, as citizens of this state. I appreciate your time. If you've got any specific other questions, if not, I will go and grab a couple of the other comments that I have recently had from various people as far as questions that I have received. I think I mentioned the Second Amendment. I mentioned gun rights. Where do you stand on the Second Amendment? In the past, I have been endorsed by the NRA Political Victory Fund. I may or not agree with everybody on gun rights, but I do believe that gun rights are very important. Article 1, Section 6 of our state constitution says the individual right of the people to keep and bear arms for security and defense of self, family, others, property, or the state, as well as other lawful purposes, shall not be infringed, but nothing herein shall prevent the legislature from defining the lawful use of arms. That would allow you to fix it so that you can't shoot your neighbor's cat in Salt Lake City or within X number of feet of a particular house, that type of things. But there's nothing in there that should stop us from being able to defend ourselves and our property. That is a given right, and it should be protected. I spoke at a rally at the state capitol in February. I spoke opposing the red flag laws being proposed, and I strongly condemned the Salt Lake County Mayor's decision for operational change to close the gun show background check loopholes at gun shows at county facilities. Somebody asked me this question, which apparently bugs some Republicans. If you're a defender of property rights, then why did you publicly oppose and speak against the Olympia Hills project before Salt Lake County Council vote? I've got a blog post. If you go to fredcox4utah.com, there's a blogspot link, and there's something specifically on Olympia Hills. I don't want to take all the time right now. But I proposed a compromise so that they would master plan for the development, but not rezone until we have the infrastructure and everything in place where something could be developed properly, so we wouldn't cause problems with transportation and water and sewer and air, etc. There's a way of working with property owners to allow them to develop without putting other cities at risk. This was done in the county, and then we're telling a city either this development has to be annexed by an adjacent city or their own city by the time they hit a certain population. So we're basically saying, here's the rules, and we're going to give it to another city to deal with in the future, and that was a mistake. The other thing that people have asked about was the government mandated shutdown, and I briefly mentioned that. The government overstepped its constitutional authority we gave them, and we need to realize that many people have been traumatized by earthquakes and death in addition to this virus. That means if someone's going to feel better if I wear a mask, or if I'm going to feel better in some situations to wear a mask, that needs to be okay. I have one or two I can wear. But that it should not be the government's decision. Um, there was a recent Supreme Court decision yesterday on religion and government shutting down religion. That totally violates the First Amendment of our Bill of Rights, and yet we have our um, we have people that are supposed to be protecting our rights, and they're not. Um, anyway, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background as far as where I am. Um, I do have yard signs. I put up several of them. I've recently received some requests. And if you private message me your address, I'm more than happy to get you a yard sign. I've got a couple of them that I promised today. Probably take as much time as I need, but if you've got any other specific questions, Tuesday, if you go to the Facebook page for Salt Lake County Council, they do Facebook Live events similar to this, and you can listen to what the CFO of the county is proposing as far as how they're going to save $95 million. That's going to be pretty important because those decisions need to be made now, because the taxes are, the property taxes they got basically last year. We've got a little bit of time on those, but a lot of the funds that pay for certain things are sales tax, and that will be affected in fact, they should have been making this decision months ago. Most business owners were doing it then. The legislature has been looking at that statewide. The county should have been on top of this perhaps sooner. I have talked to a couple of members of the county council on this specific issue, and they're hoping that if they can save that $100 million or whatever, that they can save that ongoing and not just temporarily, so that we can eventually reduce our tax burdens instead of increasing it. I appreciate your time. I need your support. Starting about June 9th, you should be receiving ballots in the mail. If you're a Republican, you should be able to vote for me. This fall, I'll be on the ballot if I win, and whether you're Republican or independent or whatever. But if you think you're Republican and you're not sure, you can verify that. If you don't want to be Republican, that's fine. You will always be invited to any town hall meeting I have, whether you're Republican or not. Your ideas will be just as valid, and I will represent you, whether you're Republican, Democrat, Green, Constitutional, Libertarian, Utah United, whatever affiliation you have somebody that is willing to listen. We may or may not always agree. I kid people, I don't always agree with myself. But that doesn't mean that I can't respect your opinion and listen. And if I can create a win-win scenario where you are a winner and somebody of an opposing view is also a winner, that is ideal, because we need people that listen to both sides. It doesn't mean that I have to compromise my principles. You're not going to see me all of a sudden promoting abortion for no reason at all. Other things, there are various things that I have specific principles in, and those aren't going to change. But other things, I will listen. And if you've got a good argument, I'm not afraid to learn. As an architect, one of the smartest things that I do is listen to other people that have been doing something for 20 years. To tell a roofer how to roof is one thing. Now, I can give them specifications from a manufacturer. I can tell them what the building code says. I can give them various other things. But if they've got 20 or 30 years doing something, it's pretty egotistical of an architect to basically say, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know anything. We need people that are elected by us to represent us, that are willing to listen and willing to learn, because ultimately I will make the best decision I can following our U.S. Constitution, our state constitution, and the advice and suggestions of the people that I represent, and I will make those best decisions. And your representatives cannot know what you think just by reading your mind. You need to tell them. Email is a great tool because you can send it at 3 in the morning, it won't wake me up, and I can still read it. My email address is fred@fredcox, the number 4, utah.com. Send me an email with your brilliant ideas. If you've got questions, I'll respond to them on my blog post. That blog goes back over 10 years. You can find all sorts of things that I've thought on all sorts of subjects. I didn't delete those. And in some cases, I may have learned something in the last 10 years, and so I may have a different opinion. But ask me questions, give me great ideas, and ultimately, the government needs to let people govern themselves as much as at all possible. We do not need to run your lives. And there are certain things that you have asked for, like garbage pickup, so the county's got a landfill that they operate. There's things that we need to do based on what we need, but we're doing way too many things. Talk to you later. Let me know what you think. Thanks. Fred Cox. Vote for Fred Cox, Salt Lake County Council, District 2. Talk to you later, and bye.